Did you know that Rosalina is not only Peach's sister, but she also has a brother that almost nobody remembers? And with the new Mario Galaxy movie, we were left completely confused about her true origin, since Rosalina's story in the film changes a lot compared to her story in the video game. But with what little we know, we can already start to piece together her entire life and history within the Mario universe. So get ready, because today you're gonna understand who Rosalina really is and how she connects to what we saw in the Mario Galaxy movie. In the movie, Rosalina is introduced as a mysterious space princess, someone we don't really know much about. The only thing we are shown is that she's Peach's older sister, and that they lived together on a small planet when they were kids. They played, laughed, and had fun together. But the most surprising part is that both of them had a very unusual power. They could combine their abilities to create life and make that power even stronger. This isn't just any power, and that's exactly why Bowser wanted to obtain it, to conquer the entire universe. So, Rosalina made a very difficult decision, to separate from Peach in order to protect her. That's why she sends her to the Mushroom Kingdom and stays behind alone. Over time, she trained herself and built her army of Lumas. They call her a mom, so she becomes their guide. She protects space while Peach protects the Mushroom Kingdom. What's interesting is that with this story, we can start to assume that Peach, besides Rosalina, might have more family out there on other planets. So, following the movie's logic, it's very likely that Daisy could also be part of Rosalina and Peach's family. And that leaves us with a huge question. What happened to their parents? Some of you might say that in Rosalina's storybook from the movie, she mentions that both she and Peach are made of stardust. But that doesn't mean they magically came from space because of a comet or an exploding star. In fact, the explanation is pretty interesting. Because if you didn't know, everything in the universe is made of stardust. Even us! And I'm not the one saying it. Science is. So, most likely Peach's family did have a mother and a father. And this is where the comparison with the video game comes in. Because I think that, in a way, the story changes for the movie, but at the same time, it still connects to key parts of the game's story. And in the game, they tell us exactly what happened to her parents, and even that Rosalina has a brother. Because in Super Mario Galaxy, the video game, Rosalina's story doesn't begin like it does in the movie. In the game, Rosalina is just a little girl who did have a family. It's mentioned that she lived with her father, her mother, and her brother. In fact, the story also tells us that Rosalina was very afraid of losing her mom. And sadly, that fear comes true, because her mother ends up passing away. After that, Rosalina holds onto the hope that one day her mom might come back. But right at that moment, she meets a lost Luma. And ironically, that Luma was also searching for its mother. So the game actually tells us how Rosalina met the Lumas and how she decided to help it. Probably because she already knew what it felt like to lose her mom. She makes the decision to go into space without even knowing if she'll ever come back to Earth. And many years pass as she searches for the Luma's mother, while Rosalina grows up far away from her family in another galaxy. Over time, more and more Lumas arrive, and they stay because they trust her. And without even realizing it, Rosalina becomes their mother. Once Rosalina understood that she would never return home, together with the Lumas, they built what would become the Observatory, her new home in space. But at some point, Rosalina decided to return to her planet, so she wouldn't forget where she came from. Sadly, she no longer finds her family. Even so, she chooses to return every 100 years to visit her favorite planet and make sure it's never forgotten. This explains the comet shower at the beginning of Super Mario Galaxy, the video game. So, within the game, Rosalina's story is actually very sad and tragic, because she basically lost her entire family and grew up alone in space. There's no mention here of Peach being her sister, or how they could have even met. So then, how does all of this connect to what we saw in the movie? This can be explained through 3 different theories. First, it's believed that both Rosalina and Peach do have parents, and it's possible that we might finally meet them in future Mario movies. Although, something tells us that, based on the story we saw in the video game, they may have already passed away. Even so, as we've seen in Mario movies, they love giving us flashbacks of when characters were younger, and that's where they could show us more about their parents. Another theory suggests that the brother mentioned in the game was adapted in the movie and turned into Peach as the sister instead. It's possible that both of them, and maybe even Daisy, come from the same planet where the Mushroom Kingdom exists. And here, the story would be adapted so that Rosalina didn't just leave to help the Luma find its mother, but also took Peach with her. That's why we saw them on a floating planet in outer space, very similar to the game when Rosalina and the Lumas stay on a planet together. And finally, the third theory suggests that Rosalina might not be her biological sister at all, but instead, she may have found Peach when she was very young and made her part of her family, just like she did with the Lumas. We know that Peach shares the same power as Rosalina, and maybe that's exactly why she didn't want to leave her alone, because Rosalina already knew there were dangerous forces out there that would try to take advantage of that power. In fact, that's the reason why Rosalina decided to send Peach to the Mushroom Kingdom. Knowing this, we can also consider the possibility that Peach and Rosalina aren't the only ones with this power. There could be more. And this is where Daisy comes in. People connected to the same power, but scattered across different planets. And that's why they would be sisters, not by blood, but by the power they were born with and share. But here's where things get really interesting. Because if we connect everything we've seen, the movie, the game, and these theories about her family, there's one detail that changes everything. Rosalina didn't just leave her family, she replaced it. She built a new home, a new family, and a new purpose. And now, look at the movie. Instead of losing everything, Rosalina already has someone by her side. Peach. So, what if Peach isn't just her sister? What if Peach is the replacement for the family Rosalina lost? She finds someone small and she protects her, just like she did with the Lumas. And if that's true, then Rosalina's story isn't just about space or power or mystery. It's about loss, and how she keeps rebuilding her family again and again in different ways, which would mean that Peach, the Lumas, and maybe even Daisy aren't just random characters in her life. They're all part of something much deeper, the family Rosalina refused to lose. And this is everything we know so far about Rosalina. Let me know in the comments if you noticed any other details, and I'll see you in the next video.